we are looking at ImageLine's new VST called Spreader. This is basically like a more premium version of Wider by Polyverse, if you have ever used that. But also, I'm going to compare it with Ozone Imager, which is probably the closest thing to it. There is another one that I have, Ozone 9 Imager. This one's multiband, but since the FL1 isn't multiband, I'm not going to compare it to it. However, in FL Studio, you do have the frequency splitter, which you can send your channels, one channel on the mixer to different tracks there, and then you can multiband anything. But we're not going to get into that right now. This first 2 bars will be with no effect. The next 2 bars will be with FL Spreader. The 2 bars after that will be with Ozone Imager. And it'll do one more with no effect, so you can hear it again. Then after that, we have FL Studio Spreader on, and then we have it on, but we have it switched to mono after the effect in the chain, which is going to tell us what the mono compatibility of it is like. If it has a major reduction in sound when it goes from FL Spreader to FL Spreader mono, then that's poor mono compatibility. Same here, it's going to go to ImageLine and then to ImageLine with the mono after the effect of the chain. And I'll go ahead and change some effects around too, so that we can get an idea as to whether or not these factors hold up in with other settings. So let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and press play. I'll let it run through the whole thing. We'll talk about it a little bit. Then I'll go in and highlight just this area and then change some effects around and see what that sounds like. So let's start. First, no effect. FL Spreader. Ozone Imager. Back to no effect. Now we're going into FL Spreader. Now mono. Okay. Now, one of the reasons I used Ozone to compare it to is because I know Ozone is mono compatible, and it held up very well in that test. However, based on what I'm hearing, Spreader held up just as well in the test. And so this one, you have a stereoize and width effect. This one you have these 3 options. Low bypass is actually really useful. That's really useful. That is kind of the reason you need a multi-band imager in most situations. If you have any low frequency information, you don't want there to be any stereo below like 250 hertz. However, let's go ahead and do a test to see who has the widest sounding stereo spreader. And also in the Ozone 9 Imager that I pulled up earlier, and there's Ozone 10 and I think 11 out now. This one actually has 2 different stereoized models. I'm not going into that, but just so you know, some of these other more premium ones will have multiple models for the stereo imaging itself. But let's go ahead and get into this right here. I'm going to go ahead and crank this up all the way. Let's go ahead and do the same thing here with this guy. We're going to go ahead and try it out. So one thing I definitely notice, and I'm listening on some crappy gaming headset because my audio card is being used by FL Studio. There's complications with recording the microphone through. I don't want to get into it, but so I'm limited with the fidelity I'm hearing. It sounds like shit, but for listening to stereo separation, it's pretty useful. But what I am hearing from this is that the FL Spreader is making it a lot. It's distorting the high end. It's adding a lot of not the desirable kind of saturation that typically go for. Let me listen again and see if I can tell which one's wider. So the FL spreader does sound wider, so let's try bringing it down to around, and also wideness is a psychological thing. It's not actually wide, it's just effects that make it sound wide. So what sounds one way, it sounds, it's all perspective. If it sounds really wide to me, it might not sound very wide to someone else, or, so you're going to get varying results. In addition, if you have better speakers than what I'm listening to, then that'll help a lot. So I think a part of what I'm hearing is that Imager, because it does not have the low bypass, you're getting a lot of that low end stereo separation. Let's turn this off and see if this sounds more comparable. Yeah, it does sound very comparable actually. It still does sound like it's destroying the high end a little bit. Maybe not. I need to listen to it on better monitors. Well, now that we have this cranked up, let's go back into the monitor compatibility test and see how it does. If you'll notice from earlier, and if you have experience in music production, you already know this, but you're going to lose generally some perceived loudness if you throw mono in post effect on the chain there, compared to not having the mono forced in a mono after that. So that's normal. It's just the way it psychologically sounds. That's one of the reasons you do stereo spreading is to make it perceive louder. But let's go ahead and try this out. See how these will test. I'm impressed. It actually held up really well. I think this is an incredibly useful tool. No one ever needs to use Polyverse wider anymore. At least FL Studio users don't need to, because this comes with FL Studio. It's probably going to come with some of the lower end packages as well. I'm definitely going to be using this when I don't need multiband. We're going to, and again, because of the low bypass, you actually don't need. Oh. Wait a minute. So this is going to mono the low pass? That's what I thought it was doing already. Oh, it was just not affecting it. Now it's forcing it into mono. Even more useful. I think that's all of the parameters on here. But yeah, that pretty much covers the plugin. I just wanted to cover it real quick. It just came out in the beta a few days ago, I believe. And I have a beta, and it said that it's going to end in September. I don't know if that's when the new release of FL Studio was coming out, but I think people have a very good reason to look forward to this. There was some other stuff that was released with this beta as well, and I will be getting into that in following videos. Thank you very much for your time. Have an excellent day.